Terra Moons is launching their first ever lab-made palette, Ophiuchus, and let me tell you everything that you need to know about it. I'm going to be doing some detailed swatches, then I'll do a look using the palette, and at the end we'll do a little bit of discussion where I'll give you my opinions, but I'll also talk through how these formulas compare to their pre-existing handmade shadows. Also, in case you're new here, my name is Nupur and I love indie makeup and all things color and sparkle, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. I would really appreciate it if you could give this video a like and consider subscribing if you aren't already subscribed, especially if you like indie makeup content. Let me give you some launch details really quickly. So this palette is launching on May 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will retail for $57, and I believe that it's code eligible. I haven't heard anything contrary to that. My affiliate code is Nupur15, so it'll save you 15% on your purchase, and I will make a small commission off of that. Thank you so much if you use it. But I do also want to disclose that I did receive this palette from the brand to do some paid content for them. This video is not sponsored or anything. I just wanted to disclose that, and now we can get into the close-ups and swatches. Here's the inside of the palette. It is a 12-pan palette with 6 mattes and 6 shimmers. The palette is also magnetic. Then here are my photo swatches so you can see the entire color story at once, but I will be doing individual shimmer swatches in a second here along with shade descriptions. Here are all of the mattes together. These did feel different from the Terra Moons hand-pressed matte formula, and I will talk more about this in the tutorial as well as the discussion later. Popping in to let you know how I do my individual shimmer swatches, just in case you're new to my channel. So I do a built-up swatch up top and a sheer swatch at the bottom, and then when I'm rotating my hand like this in front of the camera, I do it both in focus as well as out of focus so you can get a well-rounded idea of what the eyeshadow looks like. Affl Ophiuchus has a pigmented teal base with sparkles that shift from a gold to green to blue. The gold does mix in with the base, taking on more of a green hue. This shade has a medium particle size and some texture, which makes it very sparkly. Kepler Supernova has a pigmented gray base and sparkles that shift coppery orange, gold, and green. It is super smooth and a little emollient, which gives it a very reflective and shiny finish, but it's also still very sparkly. Zeta Ophiuchus has a deep gray base with sparkles that shift pink, peach, gold, and green. There are also some pinprick purple sparkles that aren't super noticeable, but they do add dimension. It has some texture, but still smooths out when swatched. It's a bit emollient and can move around in the pan if you apply too much pressure. Little Ghost Nebula is an iridescent with sparkles that shift green, blue, and even indigo at a sharp angle. It has a slight yellow hue to the base, but it doesn't show up that much on me. The particle size is really small and the shadow is super smooth, but it's still very sparkly and vivid. 13th Zodiac has a neutral rosy base with larger silver sparkles and tiny pinprick gold sparkles that are harder to see but create some dimension. This one has a bit of a textured finish, but is also super sparkly. It's also one of the more emollient shades and moves around in the pan if you press too hard. Twinset Nebula has a lime green base with sparkles that shift pink, peach, yellow, and lime green at a sharp angle. This one also feels a bit emollient, but not overly so. It smooths out to a very reflective and sparkly finish. So as I'm doing this look, I am going to talk about how the formulas are applying and performing, since this is a different formula than Terra Moon's hand-pressed shadows. I'm going to start by picking up this rusty orangey shade over here, and right off the bat, I'm noticing that there isn't a ton of kick up in the pan, at least compared to their hand-pressed matte formula, which is extremely powdery, and there's usually like a lot of dust just flying around in the pan when you pick it up. I'm applying the shadow in my crease, really wedging it in the deepest part of my crease, because what I noticed when I did this eye first was that this is a very pigmented shadow, which hopefully you can see, you know, like that went on very strongly. I don't know if that's the right word, but I only ended up dipping into the pan one more time to kind of like add in more pigment in the spots that I wanted, but you probably wouldn't even need to do that if you went in with a more confident hand, which I don't do. I'm just gonna work on blending this out with whatever I already have down, taking it a little bit up towards my brow bone, but also feathering it off in this inner area over here. It's blending pretty easily, but not too much, because I feel like with their previous matte formula, which was very powdery, it spread like super easily, which was good if you wanted just like a light wash of shadow in your crease, but if you wanted to work with it more precisely, I do think that's where some people found them difficult to work with. Now I'm going to pick up this shadow over here, which is looking a little blue in my viewfinder. I hope it's not going to look blue in the final video, because in real life, it's a bit more teal. I'm going to pack this, like really pack this on the outer edge of my lid because I find that with teals and my undertone, as I blend them out, they get a little bit more like greenish and murky at the edges because I have like an olive undertone and a lot of yellow in my skin, so I'm really trying to get a lot of pigment on here first. Then I'm gonna slowly start blending it outward, but really trying to take it in this direction and not so much up into the orange just yet, just because these two shades don't blend super well together. Now I'm gonna just slowly feather out this edge over here, and then start just like with tapping motions, blend it into the orange, but not too much. I picked up a little bit more teal and I'm gonna pack that again over here, and then once again softly blend. Picked up more teal on this angled brush and I'm going to run that over here on the lower lash line really quick. I'm hopping over to the lower lash line first to kind of like figure out the shape I want here before going and blending that some more. So now to help blend these two shades a little bit more, I'm gonna pick up just like the tiniest little, that much of this green shade. And I'm just gonna wiggle it very carefully here, not trying to spread this pigment anymore into the orange, but just get a softer edge. And now back to blending this teal again. I wanna bring it outwards a little bit more. I feel like those mattes blended about as easily as two mattes that don't really go together could blend. Like I don't feel like I had a really hard time blending it, but I also feel like this is a trust the process look and I need to move on to the shimmers to see how I feel about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up this shimmer over here. I am putting this all over my lid pretty much. So these shadows are pretty emollient compared to Terra Moon's usual hand press formula. They're not like super oily or anything like that, but they do have that, you know, like slick feel to them. And because of that, I feel like you need to be careful to not pick up too much or it could get really thick and make your lid look textured, I think. It did pick up really well on a brush though, so that's good to see. This shadow did build up really well on my lids. Like it is so reflective and sparkly right now. It's wild. For my lower lash line, I want to pull in some more teal with this shimmer over here. While this eyeshadow does have enough emollients to stick down, it does have a little bit of texture, so I'm gonna spray my brush just so that I don't get any fallout. I'm starting at the outer corner and then dragging it inwards, and then really just tapering it off as I get to this part over here. Now for the inner corner, I'm gonna pick up this iridescent over here, which I am very excited about. I have been waiting for Terra Moons to come out with an iridescent like this that has that like super vibrant green shifts straight on, but then shifts to like a blue and even an ultraviolet at an angle. This is going in the usual areas I put iridescence, so the inner corner, and over here joining up with that teal shimmer, and then also swooping it upwards towards the crease. This iridescent is super smooth, which is my preferred texture for inner corner shades, just because I feel like you can build them up to get this like super vibrant and impactful finish, which I feel like is just a little bit harder with texture shades. Like I will still use texture shades on my inner swoop, but I just feel like the finish can look a little weird if you put too much on there. Here's the final look, and I cannot wait to switch you over to the sparkle cam so you can see all the shifts in the texture. This shadow is so beautiful, and while I do like to use multiple shimmers on my lid from time to time, a lot of the time if I want to go super impactful with multi-chromes, I will just put one over my entire lid, because especially with my eye shape and the curvature, I feel like that is the best way to show off all of the shifts. Here's the sparkle cam, and hopefully you can see what I mean by the eyeshadow on my lid is like liquid chrome, but it's still sparkly and so shifty too. Like you can see the pink over here, there's a green at a sharp angle, there's a gold over here, and there's even like right here there's like an orangey peach shift, and it's just so sparkly and delicious. And the other shadows are also just as sparkly and beautiful. Like look at how electric that green is in the inner swoop, and the teal, you can see it shifting from like a more greenish teal to more of a blue on my lower lash line. So pretty. Before we get into my thoughts on the palette, I just want to mention that this is very much not a review. I do try to be as detailed as possible, but it's more of like an overview of the palette. Let's talk about the color story and about Ophiuchus, because I am a casual astrology buff, but I don't really know too much about Ophiuchus being like the 13th sign or like the lost zodiac sign. I don't really know what the colors are for that sign or anything to do with it, but I do think that this is a pretty color story on its own. One of the things that I don't like about this palette is that I feel like these two green mattes are a little too similar to be in the same palette because they're slightly different undertones and this one is a little bit deeper, but I feel like on the eyes they're going to translate very similarly, and we didn't need both of them in this palette, and I would have much rather have seen this one be a lighter matte because in terms of depth in this palette, we only have one super light matte and it's this pastel one over here. And if this was like a lighter olive green, I feel like it would have made a lot more sense with this palette. This color story does skew a little bit towards the deeper side because like I said, there's really only one light matte and then the rest are either midtones or deepening up shades. So I feel like if you are someone who mostly uses lighter to mid-tone mattes, I don't know if you would like this palette. But on the flip side, if you're someone like me who prefers mostly like mid-tones and deepening up options and bolder, colorful looks, then I can see this being right up your alley. I am a little confused seeing this neutral shimmer in the palette because this does not read as a neutral palette to me at all. Like even with this gray shade over here, I just feel like overall it's such a colorful, a little bit murky, but still colorful color story. So I don't really understand why this is here, but I do think it's a really, really pretty shimmer. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is Terra Moon's first palette that was manufactured in a lab. Before this point, all of their eyeshadows, both the ones in palettes as well as the single shadows, were all hand pressed and hand mixed, hand poured, all of that. Now that said, the formulas in this palette are 100% different from anything that I've experienced from Terra Moons before. I'm gonna say right off the bat that I much prefer this matte formula to Terra Moon's hand pressed matte formula. I know that their old matte formula was very polarizing and I didn't mind it, but it wasn't my favorite. It was definitely not something I reached for unless I was like specifically creating for Terra Moons or if there was a specific tone that I wanted to use. That was pretty much the only time that I would reach for the mattes. But with this matte formula, I am very, very excited for the future of the brand and to see what they come out with tones and everything because this is a matte formula that I really enjoy using. I found that this matte formula was very, very pigmented and still easy to control with blending because with Terra Moon's old formula, I felt like there could be like overspreading very easily. Like you could blend from here out to here in like 2 seconds. Like it was a little easy to kind of lose control of the formula, but with this one I felt like it stayed exactly where I wanted it to, which is not an easy feat when you're combining contrasting tones like this. Like I feel like with the old formula I would never attempt to combine orange with teal. I just know that it would end up badly, but with this new formula I was able to do this and I feel like it didn't get out of hand. I didn't use the pastel formula today, but based on how it swatched, I have pretty high hopes for it because I feel like the pastels that swatch very thin and are hard to build up in swatches are the ones that I don't enjoy using, but this built up very easily in swatches and it's super pigmented. I mean, like, you can see right there. The shimmers also feel different from their hand press shadows, and the most notable difference is that these are a lot softer and also more emollient than the hand pressed ones, but they have varying levels of emollients. This one, and this one are all the more emollient shades in the palette, and when you press down on them, they do risk like moving around a little bit in the pan. They aren't squishy, they're just very soft, especially this one over here. I am not super rough with my shadows, so I would recommend just being a little careful when using them. Aside from the emollients though, I don't feel like these are all that different from Terra Moon's hand pressed formula. They still have all the sparkle and shine and specialness that I have come to expect from the brand. I'm not sure what the shimmer breakdown is in terms of like what's a true multi-chrome versus not, but as far as I can tell, this one, and this one are all multi-chromes because I see multiple shifts in them, and this one feels more of like a duochrome. There's a slight shift there, but it's not like the most obvious, and then this one down here just feels like a standard shimmer, but it is very sparkly. It's still special. I do think that the shimmers in the palette complement the tones of the mattes really, really well, aside from this one, which is a neutral, and like I said earlier, I'm not sure what this shadow is doing in the palette, but I think the rest of them match the tones of the mattes really well, with this one being a slight exception because it's got quite a bit of a pink shift straight on, so it's not like it matches the tones, but it does like It provides a nice pop of contrast, which I know a lot of people enjoy, myself included. And this shadow does also shift to a green, so it does complement some of the mattes in that way. I also really love this iridescent down here, and I hope that the brand continues making more in this formula. I know that they just put out a collection of 10 iridescents, but those are in their hand pressed formula and have a bit more of like a PC finish with a medium particle size. And I just want to see more that are this like super smooth finish and super intense. Also, personally, texture wise, I'm very happy to see that none of these are super flaky or anything like that. When I found out that this was going to be a lab made palette, I was a little worried that some of the shadows could be a bit more of that like chunky finish, but I feel like nothing in here is like that. I do think that if you are prone to creasing with emollient shadows, these might crease on you. I don't know for sure because I don't really experience creasing, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess for me, unfortunately for you guys, because I can't test it, but that's just something that I would be aware of. All in all, I do think that this is a really pretty color story from Terra Moons, and it makes me really excited to see what they will do in the future now that they're producing stuff in a lab. I also want to be clear and mention that just because they're going to start doing palettes in a lab doesn't mean that they're going to stop hand pressing eyeshadows. They are very much going to continue offering single shadows that are hand pressed. So if you don't enjoy this new formula for whatever reason, you can still continue to buy their single shadows. But they did say that they made the move to lab produced palettes just so that they can start offering more palettes, because they know that not everyone is a single shadow person. Most people, I think, prefer to buy palettes and then supplement their collection with single shadows. So the move to doing lab manufactured palettes will allow them to put out more stuff and at greater quantities. That's it for this video. I'm trying to keep my palette overview videos from being too long while still conveying all of the important and necessary information. So if I forgot to mention something, or if you have any questions, just let me know down in the comments and I will definitely get back to you. As always, thank you so much for watching till the end of the video. I really appreciate it. I would also really appreciate it if you could give this video a like before you go, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!